Welcome back, 10-Minute Drawing Techniques, Episode 9, Part 3, Introduction to Backgrounds, with your host, Mark Chong. Just going to continue off where we left off on Part 2. Okay. So now all I'm doing right now is I'm just adding some details to the cliff wall. And all of my details, they're all just following the volumes. I can make some areas go in or out. Adding some interest to the sidewall so it doesn't look so blank. Okay. And maybe what would be nice would be when I was out in Italy, I knew there was a lot of vegetation growing up along the side of the cliffs. They weren't just barren rock. So right now I'm just carving some, I guess you can call them pathways down. And this area here, I've overlapped the two areas. Let's decide which direction the light's coming from. Let's let the light come from far away. Put the sunlight there and let it come towards us. And now that we've decided where the light's coming from, it's important to make sure that when you shade things, that all the light is coming from the same direction, and the shaded areas are all consistent with this. Whenever you shade, you're showing that this area here is turning a corner, this area here is turning a corner. These areas, the light can actually reach. So keep that in mind when you shade. Now, let's see, what am I going to do? Let's get some vegetation in here. Or, more importantly, figure out what's going to go on with this side of the picture, because it's seeming kind of barren and boring. Well, I guess since we're sitting on land, here, I can put something, a foreground element of some kind, maybe a big bush or tree. In fact, you know what? I don't really need this. I don't need our diagram anymore, so I can blow it away. You saw how quickly, how easy it was. It's just a map. So, the sun I just sort of know is somewhere out there. So I've just penciled that in temporarily. And a tree, what would be really nice is let's have the tree point towards our lighthouse, which is what we're interested in. So I'm going to have it pointing generally in that direction. So, an irregular shape is all I'm really going for. And how large do I want it? I'm always trying to figure out what's the extent of the tree. I've got this sort of a border shape. There's only so large I want the tree to be, and I want it to dominate the frame, meaning it appears to be close, it's large, but at the same time it has this effect of pointing us towards the lighthouse. And this whole pointing effect, actually being able to redirect the viewers, where it is that the viewer is looking. Pointing this, this effect of actually being able to point someone, being able to direct someone's attention, this is known as composition. And the whole purpose of composition is that in an image that is very detailed, there are so many things going on that it's impossible to take everything in at once. But if you can direct the viewer's attention from one thing to another thing to another thing, in an order that you contrive or decide, then it makes the image work. It makes makes it less confusing. And by having one object larger than the other, giving, this object contrast, contrasting the size, the shape, the amount of light hitting it, adds interest, as opposed to having everything looking the same. And right now I'm just sort of doing a rudimentary tree branching. Adding some extra forms. And the way I'm doing this tree is I'm doing it in chunks. I'll have one large chunk here, and then I'll have another shape that kind of comes out from behind this large chunk, and then there's another shape here that's behind that chunk. So I'm not trying to, by no means am I trying to draw every single leaf, but I am treating everything as separate chunks. And now I'll just shade to add. Add a bit of depth. Oh, jeez. No, not now. Sorry, guys. That was funny. Diskkeeper, great program. Wonderful disk defragger. And yes, they are constantly updating it. It's funny though, that little update kind of goes against their invisitasking, I think. Okay. Oh yeah, and of course the branches will have to be done nice and dark. Oof. I'm leaving a hole here on purpose so I can, we can see through the tree. Darkening the branches a bit as well. How much time we got left? Not much. Gonna have to split this again. But, you're starting to get the idea. When I draw bushes and plants, they're just radial scribbles. But my radial scribbles, one overlaps another and overlaps another. And so what I'll do is I can shade, a part of the radial scribble, I can shade this interior part. I'm going to leave that light, but I'll shade this area and make it dark. And I'll get a series of alternating dark, light, dark patterns. And that's going to give you a feeling of depth. These bits are going to start getting closer and closer to you. How much time we got left? Very little. I might actually be able to finish this off though. So, we got all this cliff wall here. Let's figure out which direction the shadow's falling. Shadow's probably falling like that. And let's let it pass over the. There, all that is in shadow now. Throw all this into shadow. Let's have. What are we at? Oh. Throw all that into shadow. All that can be thrown into. Oh wait. Yeah, let's throw it into shadow. I'm gonna let this area stay a bit lighter, but I'll throw this area here into shadow. So now I've got a light, dark, light pattern. This area here. Throw that into shadow. Let that remain light, but throw that into shadow.